Megami sat upon her small, but dignified, ever normal-looking chair in a cottage in the woods, plastic scepter in hand, her fake fuzzy cat ears firmly on her head. The chair, like everything else in her world, was unassuming at first glance, until you realized it never creaked, cracked, or wobbled, no matter how long you sat in it. She stared at the empty table in front of her, wondering what could be for dinner. Her best friend, Cindy, was late. Cindy was never late. Megami twirled the scepter idly in her hand, the plastic jewel at its tip catching the dim candlelight. A faint hum seemed to emanate from it, a sound she couldn't quite place. She glanced at the clock, an old-fashioned thing with hands that ticked, though they sometimes skipped backward when no one was looking. Why is she late? Megami murmured to herself, tapping the scepter against her knee. Dinner won't make itself. Her cottage, nestled in the heart of the forest, was quiet but alive. The shadows of trees danced on the walls, whispering secrets to the wind. Outside, the faint rustle of leaves carried a peculiar rhythm, as though the forest itself was restless. Introducing a mystery. Suddenly, the scepter in her hand began to glow faintly, a soft pulse of light radiating from its plastic jewel. Megami frowned. That's new, she muttered, leaning closer to examine it. The light wasn't bright, but it felt intentional. A gentle knock at the door broke her concentration. Megami froze. It wasn't Cindy's knock. Cindy always knocked 3 times, fast and cheerful. This was slow, deliberate. Cindy. Megami called, her voice wavering just slightly. No answer. The knock came again. Slow, steady. It is I, came the answer. Who? Called Megami, wondering deeply, sensing foreboding. It is I, came the response. Once again. Now who greets themselves like that? Wondering Megami, feeling very troubled. Do I know you? She wondered aloud timidly. Of course you do. Came the holler. It is I. Came the holler, louder this time, reverberating through the cottage walls. The forest outside seemed to hold its breath. The rhythmic rustling of the leaves silenced as though they, too, awaited Megami's next move. She gripped her plastic scepter a little tighter, the faint glow from its jewel pulsing in time with her quickening heartbeat. Well, she muttered to herself, that's not ominous at all. Summoning what she hoped was a commanding tone, Megami called back, if I know you, then surely you know me. State your name and your purpose. A pause, a long, unnerving silence stretched between the door and her chair. Then, in a voice both unfamiliar and eerily familiar, the response came, you made me, Megami. Surely you haven't forgotten your own creation. Megami's breath caught in her throat. My creation. She whispered, the scepter trembling slightly in her hand. Her mind raced, flipping through the metaphorical pages of her memory. She had crafted many things in her life, stories, ideas, even a few odd inventions, but nothing that could stand at her door and speak. The voice, now softer but no less unsettling, continued, you gave me life, you gave me purpose, and now I've come to claim what you promised. What have I made? Wondered Megami. As a goddess of cuteness and beauty, she of course improved many things, but what, she wondered, has she made? Well, I guess if I made you, maybe we can be friends? I'm coming. I'll be right there. Megami went quickly but carefully to the door, but on her best cheery face, and opened the door with her best well hello there attitude, only to find, nothing. Hello, mother. She heard, in a loud boom that startled her. What? But, where are you? What are you? I still don't know, mother. That's why I'm here. Well, now that's definitely cute. Megami stepped outside, her fuzzy cat ears twitching slightly as she scanned the empty forest. The usual whispers of the trees seemed muted, as though they were holding back some grand secret. The glowing jewel in her scepter pulsed softly, casting tiny flickers of light into the dark. Mother, I'm everywhere. The voice boomed again, resonating from the air itself, as if the forest had become its mouthpiece. I am incomplete. I need you to finish me. Megami tilted her head, pondering this new development. Incomplete. Huh? Well, you're very dramatic for something that's not finished. She twirled her scepter thoughtfully, but I guess I can work with that. You say I made you, but I don't even know what you are. Can you show yourself? The voice hesitated, a rumbling pause that felt like a thundercloud gathering. I don't know how to be, mother. You never taught me. I was waiting, all this time, for you to come back. Come back. Megami blinked. I've never left. I've been right here in my lovely little cottage, making my tea, feeding the birds, and being fabulous. What do you mean waiting? You made me in the metaphorical world, mother. I am the shadow of your improvements. Every little tweak, every little touch of cuteness and beauty you've ever done, it left pieces. I think I am all those pieces, brought together. Megami's eyes widened, her cheery demeanor softening into curiosity. You mean, you're, like, a collage of cute? A patchwork of adorable improvements? That's, She twirled her scepter again, a playful grin spreading across her face. Pretty cute. The voice huffed, sounding almost embarrassed. Cute, yes, but not enough. I want more. I want, meaning, mother, you gave me form, but you never gave me a purpose. That's why I'm here. Help me understand what I'm supposed to do. Well, now, this is a perplexion, mused Megami, fake cat ears twitching with her psychic connection. I guess you should come in, while I make some tea and we wait for Cindy. Invited Megami. Cindy is a friend of mine. She is a bit of, well, I'll be frankish. Cindy is an utter disaster. This Cindy sounds troublesome, stated the disembodied voice matter-of-factly, but more importantly, how can I come in? I don't even know how I am, let alone how to come in. That is certainly a flimsical problem, Mr. Voice. I guess we'll ignore it for now, since in one way or another, you are here. Megami kept the door open, worried her creation may not be able to enter if she closed the door, and she set to boiling her tea over her plastic and china easy-bake toy oven that didn't emit any flames or heat but still somehow achieved its purpose of cooking stuff. Just a moment. Would you like any? It's jasmine tea with a touch of orange peel from my garden. I think it's wonderful. What is a mouth? I think I am blind. Well, Mr. Voice. Well indeed. This is a deep problem. Blind. Megami's fake cat ears twitched again as she poured the tea with a flourish. The aroma of jasmine and orange peel filled the room, mingling with the strange hum of the glowing scepter. Well, Mr. Voice, you're really stacking up the issues here. No mouth, no eyes. I'm starting to think you're not finished yet. That's what I've been saying, mother, came the booming reply, a mix of exasperation and resignation. You made me incomplete. I'm fragments of thoughts and tweaks, stitched together into this, whatever this is. Megami tapped her chin with the end of her scepter, the light pulsing in time with her thoughts. If you're fragments, then maybe you're, like, imagination goo, just floating around, waiting for someone to shape you, which, honestly, sounds like a cute problem. She took a sip of her tea and added, but also a problem. The voice sighed, or rather, something close to a sigh, like the sound of leaves rustling in an unseen breeze. I don't think I can fix myself, mother. That's why I came to you. You made me, didn't you? Doesn't that mean you know how to finish me? Megami twirled the teacup in her hands, her psychic connection flickering with curiosity and mischief. Well, now, that's the thing, isn't it? I'm not really sure what I made, but, she stood up, placing the teacup dramatically on the table. We can figure it out, together. That's what friends do, right? Friends. The voice echoed, almost hesitant. Do you mean, you want to help me? Of course, silly. Megami grinned, adjusting her fuzzy cat ears with a theatrical flourish. Helping cute little disasters is kind of my thing. I mean, I'm waiting for Cindy, aren't I? And because just when you even speak of the devil, just then, Megami heard a terrible crash that sounded of metal exploding into, well, a tree. Mother, dear mother of all mothers, blast it all to the depths. I just can't even. And that would be Cindy. Megami said as cheerfully as she could muster to both herself and Mr. Voice. Did you crash your car again, Cindy? I told you before, it's a luxurious carriage. Came the response. You don't just call a beautiful, magical, and sapient royal midnight blue Rolls-Royce a mere car. And then the witch did, as she usually does, the unexpected, and teleported straight in front of Megami's face, startling her terribly. Why do you even use a car that you always crash when you can do that? Exclaimed Megami in shock. Megami stumbled back, clutching her scepter to her chest as Cindy appeared, her midnight blue dress billowing dramatically as if caught in an unseen wind. Her pointed hat was slightly askew, a streak of soot smudged across her cheek, and her wild silver hair looked like it had just barely escaped an explosion, which, knowing Cindy, it probably had. Well, Cindy began, hands on her hips. You try steering a sapient royal carriage that has opinions about every bend in the road. I swear, Persephone, that's her name. By the way, Persephone thinks she's above following directions. Just because she's enchanted doesn't mean she can choose which road feels most scenic. Megami sighed, adjusting her fuzzy cat ears and gesturing toward the teapot. Would you like some tea, Cindy? You sound frazzled. Frazzled, Cindy exclaimed, throwing her hands in the air. I am livid. First, Persephone decides she doesn't like the forest paths. Then she insists on a shortcut that ends in a tree. And now my hat's singed. Singed. Megami. She plucked the hat off her head, holding it up as evidence. That does sound dreadful, Megami said soothingly, though her lips twitched in amusement. But maybe this is a sign you should stop driving Persephone altogether. You can teleport. After all. Cindy huffed, crossing her arms. Teleportation lacks flair. A grand entrance requires wheels. Or at least something with wheels that doesn't immediately betray me to the nearest oak tree. Ahem, interrupted Mr. Voice, his booming tone filling the cottage once more. Who is this disaster? And why does she smell faintly of brimstone? Cindy froze mid-rant, her eyes darting around the room. What was that? Megami waved her free hand dismissively. Oh, that's just Mr. Voice. He's, my creation. Apparently, he's here because I need to give him purpose or finish him or something. She turned back to Cindy, her expression brightening. Actually, you might be perfect for this. You're great at fixing things, right? Fixing things. Cindy squawked. I just crashed Persephone into a tree. Megami, what part of me screams problem solver to you? The part where you always manage to cause a mess and find your way out of it, Megami said with a grin. Come on, Cindy, help me figure out how to deal with Mr. Voice. Cindy raised an eyebrow, eyeing the air suspiciously. And what exactly is a Mr. Voice? Good question, Mr. Voice boomed, the tone laced with sarcasm. I'd like to know the answer myself. Which, perhaps you can enlighten us, seeing as you've just teleported into the middle of my existential crisis. Cindy tilted her head, considering this. Oh, existential crisis, you say? Her lips curved into a mischievous smile. Now that I can work with. Cindy smiled that kind of ugly smile she always has whenever she has a particularly bad idea, and whispered mystically destructio existential. Crisis. What was that? Said Mr. Voice and Megami in unison. And then, a shrill scream sounding of grinding gears and an ethereal voice. Persephone. Cried Cindy. It's all decaying. Shrieked the only voice of reason around. It's all decaying. And then, nothing. Hello. Megami clutched her scepter, her fake cat ears twitching frantically. Cindy, she whispered, her voice trembling but still carrying a hint of her usual cheer. Please tell me this is one of your normal disasters. Cindy, for once, didn't have a snarky reply. Her eyes were wide, her face pale as she stared into the empty space where Persephone's voice had faded. That wasn't supposed to happen. What do you mean, that wasn't supposed to happen? Megami hissed. You just muttered some creepy nonsense. And now Persephone, your car, is screaming about decay and then, just poofs. I didn't poof her. Cindy snapped, though her voice lacked its usual bite. It was just supposed to stabilize Mr. Voice, give him some structure. I didn't expect. Me. Boomed Mr. Voice, now echoing with a trembling intensity. You were trying to stabilize me. The cottage shuddered, and the light from Megami's scepter flared brighter, casting wild shadows on the walls. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, as though the very fabric of reality was stretching too thin. Wait. Megami interrupted, waving her free hand in the air like she was trying to get a teacher's attention. Everyone just, calm down. Cindy, what exactly did you do? Cindy gulped. I may have borrowed some energy from Persephone. Just a little, you know, to try and give Mr. Voice some form. But I think. Her voice trailed off as she glanced nervously at the door, the forest beyond eerily silent. You think what? Megami demanded, stepping closer, her scepter glowing fiercely now. I think Persephone didn't like being borrowed, Cindy admitted, her voice barely a whisper. And now she's somewhere else. Somewhere else. Megami's ears twitched furiously. What does that even mean? I don't know, Cindy said, wringing her hands. But I think she took a piece of Mr. Voice with her. Hello? Once again, Megami heard a voice. Or rather, she felt a voice. A chill went from above Megami's cat ears to beneath her feet. That's weird, she thought. I usually don't imagine feeling beyond my body. In fact, I don't remember ever feeling that before. How odd. How. It's coming. And then Megami realized she hadn't heard from Mr. Voice in a bit. Mr. Voice? Are you still here? No response. Another chill beyond her body and more forbiddingnesses. How? Even. Megami tightened her grip on her cute plastic scepter. It felt cold, and it wasn't glowing anymore, but for some reason, she imagined it was. It's here. And then Megami went blind and felt but did not hear Cindy scream. Where? But the rest of the thought wouldn't start. Megami stood frozen, her grip tightening on the scepter that now felt more like ice in her hands. The air around her felt thick, as though the very fabric of reality had shifted, pressing down on her from all sides. She tried to blink, but her blindness remained, a darkness not of absence, but of presence, as though the void itself was looking back at her. Cindy. She tried to call out, but her voice felt small, swallowed by the oppressive stillness. She didn't hear herself, but she could feel the sound of her own words, rippling outward into the nothingness. Another chill ran through her, deeper this time, and she realized it wasn't just her body that felt it. It was as if the space around her, the cottage, the forest, even the ground beneath her feet, shivered in response. Where? The word drifted through her mind, not her own thought but something else, something probing. She tried to focus, to push back against the invading sensation. Where? What? She shouted, her voice trembling. The response came not in words, but in a wave of overwhelming feeling. It wasn't fear, not entirely. It was curiosity, anger, hunger, and something deeper, something ancient and unknowable. The scepter grew heavier in her hand, its plastic surface cracking faintly under her grip. She imagined it glowing, imagined it pulling light from the darkness, but the darkness remained. And then, faintly, as though from a great distance, she heard Cindy's voice, or what was left of it. Meg, run. Megami's heart lurched. Run? From what? She tried to move her feet, but they felt rooted, as if the darkness itself held her in place. Mr. Voice. She whispered again, though she doubted she'd get an answer. Her mind raced. If Mr. Voice was gone, if Cindy was wherever she was, what was here now? Eyes. I feel eyes all around me. But were they really? Megami could hardly think anymore. She tightened her grip on her scepter. She thought she felt it slip out of her hands that kept feeling further away. She tried to scream, bit still. She tried to recall the spell Cindy cast. Existentio? Pair? But her memory failed her. Where? Frantically, Megami tried to feel anything. The last thought she could remember was, this isn't very cute. And then, the pain of a blinding light. The light surged, blinding not just her eyes, already lost to darkness, but her mind, as if it pierced through the very core of her being. Megami felt herself unraveling, her thoughts scattering like fragments of glass in a storm. The eyes, the countless eyes she had felt moments ago, were gone, replaced by the searing presence of the light. Where? The word echoed again, more insistent this time, reverberating through her fractured awareness. It wasn't a question anymore. It was a demand. Megami clung to the sensation of her scepter, or what was left of it. Her fingers were numb, her grip slipping, but she imagined it still there, imagined its faint glow. Cindy, she thought desperately. Where are you? Why am I alone? The light flared again, and for a brief, agonizing moment, Megami saw, not with her eyes, those were useless now, but with some deeper sense that transcended her body. She saw the forest, but it wasn't the same. The trees were withered, their branches reaching like skeletal hands toward a sky that bled shades of violet and black. The air shimmered with something alive, something watching, and in the center of it all, towering and shapeless yet horribly present, was the source of the light. It was a void, paradoxically burning with a radiance that defied comprehension. The edges of its form shifted constantly, as though it couldn't decide what to be. And the eyes, oh, the eyes, were there after all, countless and unblinking, staring not just at Megami but into her. You must answer, the void spoke, its voice not booming like Mr. Voice's, but cold and sharp, cutting through the remnants of Megami's thoughts. Answer. She managed to whisper, her voice barely audible even to herself. Answer what? Where are you? First, tell me, what are you? I am. Answered the voice, commandingly. And you are not. And Megami realized that the mysterious void full of eyes was right. She was not. She had become just like Mr. Voice. Now she too was a disembodied voice. I don't know what tried to say Megami, but she realized she was actually even less than Mr. Voice and seemed to have no voice at all. So not cute. You are not, bellowed the eyes. Were the eyes really talking? You must be. Come. Commanded the eyes. It is Ness. ESS. Airy. Comma. Megami tried to respond. Tried to think. But her thoughts felt slippery. Like trying to grasp water with bare hands. She was not. That much was clear. And yet, she was still aware. Come. She thought. Or rather, felt. Echoing the void's booming command. What did it mean to become when she no longer had form, voice, or even the sense of herself? The question gnawed at her. A seed of something not quite fear, not quite hope. The eyes pulsed in unison, their glow dimming and flaring in a slow, rhythmic pattern. The word Ness, ESS, airy, repeated like a broken chant, reverberating through her disembodied awareness. The void swirled tighter, condensing into something more solid, more definite. Suddenly, she felt something, a faint tug, like a thread pulling at the edges of her fragmented being. It wasn't quite pain, but it wasn't comfortable either. You must be complete, bellowed the eyes, their tone now bordering on impatience. The void seemed to close in, folding around her like a suffocating blanket. Complete. Megami tried to ask, but her lack of a voice made the thought collapse into silence. And yet, the void seemed to hear. You are fragments, pieces. You are scattered. A spark, faint but undeniable, flickered in the darkness. It wasn't light exactly, but it felt familiar, like the echo of her scepter's glow. You must assemble. The tug grew stronger, and Megami's awareness began to coalesce. She wasn't sure if she was forming or if she was being formed, but the feeling of gathering, of drawing pieces together, was undeniable. Megami awoke. Where am I? Asked Megami, groggily. Welcome back, said Dr. Malcolm, dressed in scrubs. Megami laying in a hospital gurney. We think you'll be very pleased with the results of the operation. Megami awoke, screaming and crying. She lay in a crib. Her mother was late in feeding her again. Megami awoke, and then fell asleep again. Eyes again, ears and tongues all around her. It all feels so gross, so not cute, not divinely beautiful. What is happening? Tried to shout Mega. Megami awoke, and awoke, and awoke, and awoke. And was this endless? Megami awoke. This time, the air was still, heavy with the kind of silence that isn't peaceful but oppressive. She blinked, at least, she thought she blinked, but her vision remained blurry, indistinct. Shapes swirled around her, refusing to settle into anything recognizable. She tried to speak, to call out, but no words came. Only the faintest echo of her voice, like a whisper lost in a cavern, reverberated back to her. Why am I still here? The shapes swirled faster, coalescing into vague forms. A doctor, a mother, a forest with glowing eyes. Each image flickered and faded, dissolving into the void. You. A voice began, soft but resonant, as though spoken by the void itself. You are searching. For what? Megami wanted to scream, but her voice remained silent, her question unspoken. You are fragments. The voice continued echoing what the eyes had said before. Each awakening, each form, is a piece of you. You must gather them. You must choose. The last word lingered, reverberating like a ripple in still water. Choose. Megami thought, or felt, or imagined. Choose what? I don't even know who I am anymore. The voice did not answer. Instead, one of the swirling shapes grew brighter, sharpening into focus. It was the scepter, her scepter, glowing faintly, as if beckoning her forward. Suddenly, she was no longer still. She was falling, through the scepter, through the shapes, through herself. Memories and sensations whirled past her. The soft weight of a baby's blanket, the cold touch of a plastic jewel, the endless eyes of the void. Megami awoke. This time, she was back in the cottage. Or, was she? The room looked the same, but something felt off, wrong. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, like they were breathing. The table where she had poured tea for Cindy was gone, replaced by a small, glowing circle in the center of the floor. Her scepter was in her hand again, glowing brightly now, almost painfully so. Choose. The voice echoed once more, this time from within the scepter itself. Megami stared at the circle, the glowing light reflecting in her wide eyes. Choose what? She whispered, her voice trembling. And then, slowly, the circle began to change. It split into two smaller circles, each glowing with a distinct hue, one golden and warm, the other dark and cool. The voice returned, softer now, almost tender. Choose to be whole, choose your form, or choose to remain. Remain. Megami's voice cracked. Remain what? Fragments. The voice replied. Or something more. Megami heard a voice. Cindy. Megami thought she recognized the voice as Cindy's. Cindy? Is that you? Shouted Megami in panic. Reducto absurdum. Reducto absurdum. Megami heard Cindy's voice trying to craft a spell. Cindy. They both shouted in unison. Persephone, said the car. Me, said Megami, reflexively, not sure why she did. Yo. Bellowed the eyes, the tongues, and yes, even the ears. We. Hooray. And that was Mr. Voice. Megami blinked, or at least, she thought she did. It was hard to tell when you were nothing more than a thought swimming in a soup of voices, eyes, and tongues. The chaos seemed to fold in on itself, twisting into something almost comprehensible. Mr. Voice. Megami finally managed, her tone a mix of relief and exasperation. What in all the realms of cuteness is going on? I'm back, mother. Bellowed Mr. Voice, his triumphant cry echoing through the void like a victory march. And might I say, that was quite the existential detour. Whew. Detour. Megami groaned. I don't even know where we are. And why are their ears talking? That's not cute. Not cute at all. Cindy. Persephone's voice chimed in again, sounding utterly bewildered. What are you doing? You're going to destabilize the whole thing. I'm trying to fix this mess. Cindy's voice shouted, punctuated by a loud zap and what sounded suspiciously like a frying pan hitting something metallic. Reducto absurdum is supposed to simplify everything, but, I think it's making things worse. Define worse. Megami snapped, her panic rising. Because right now, I'm trapped in some existential jelly with voices yelling at me, and ears, and, and me. Mr. Voice interrupted cheerfully. Don't forget me, mother. I think I'm the glue holding all this together. Glue. Megami repeated, incredulous. Glue for what? For you, of course. Mr. Voice declared. And Cindy, and Persephone, and maybe even me. We're all, pieces of a bigger thing. That is not comforting. Persephone muttered, her tone flat. The void trembled. The chaotic sounds of voices and tongues and yes, even ears, building to a cacophony. Then, abruptly, everything went still. Megami whispered. What just happened? I think, Mr. Voice said, his tone oddly sheepish, that we're about to find out what we all really are. And then they all awoke yet again. Or did they fall asleep? The world they suddenly popped into felt so surreal and inviting and heavenly. How could this be real? Welcome to the world of absolute dreams, said a fuzzy ball of brilliant light. I don't know how you got here, but here you are. My name is Zippy Zappita Zippy Zippy Zoo Zippy Zoo Zippy Zappita Zippy Zoo Zippy. And the little ball of fuzzy light kept going on faster and faster, more and more excitedly. How cute, squealed Megami, tightening her grip on her scepter. Suddenly, and together with the rest of the quartet, she realized they were back and whole. The legends, whispered Cindy. It's true. When you go deep enough there, you come. Here, Adiri. And Cindy wept at the absolute beauty. Megami spun in place, her fake cat ears twitching furiously with excitement. The colors of Adiri, if they could even be called colors, shifted and danced like living rainbows, each hue humming a soft, melodic tune. She gripped her scepter tightly, the jewel now glowing with a vibrant light that matched the surreal landscape. Cute, she squealed again, hopping up and down. It's so cute. Cindy, isn't this the cutest place you've ever seen? Cindy, tears streaming down her face, could only nod. It's beyond anything I ever imagined, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. The legends always said that if you went deep enough into the Netherial, you'd find Adiri, but I never thought it was real. And yet, here we are. Persephone's voice chimed in. The sapient carriage hovered nearby, her sleek midnight blue form shimmering with an ethereal glow. Though I must say, this is far more pleasant than crashing into a tree. Zippy zappita zippy zoo zippity zap zap zap. The fuzzy ball of light continued, bouncing in midair with an energy that defied reason. This is the realm of everything, of dreams, of all that's possible. And now, you are part of it. Part of it. Mr. Voice boomed, his tone still resonant but softer, tinged with curiosity. What does that mean? Zippy Zappita paused for a moment, just a moment, and then zipped closer, spinning around Mr. Voice like an excited firefly. It means you're complete. You've brought yourselves together, all your pieces, all your fragments, and now you get to be you. Wait, Cindy interrupted, holding up a hand. Does this mean we're stuck here? Or what exactly happens now? Oh, silly questions. Zippy Zappita giggled. You're not stuck. You're free. Free to explore. Free to create. Free to be. The ball of light bounced higher, releasing a shower of sparkles that filled the air with laughter-like sounds. Megami twirled her scepter, her cat ears twitching thoughtfully. Well, I do love the idea of creating. But what exactly is Adiri? Why does it feel so perfect? Zippy Zappita's glow softened, and for the first time, its voice slowed. Because it's the world of dreams. The place where all things that could be, are. It's where the boundaries melt away, and you are now part of it. Zippy suddenly grew bright again and very fuzzy. And Eteria is part of Etheria is part of Etheria is part of everything. The grand heavenly dream. You are now a part of it. And then Zippy zoomed off, and then suddenly returned, and then zoomed off, and returned. Enough Zippy, said a serene voice. You've welcomed our guests. You did a good job as a greeter here. But it's time for you to go run off and play. Wee whoopee, squealed Zippy, and poof. Whatever that thing was, it was gone in a spectacular splash of glitter and fuzz. Now let me introduce myself, came the calm voice, and approached. An eyeball. The eyeball floated closer, gliding effortlessly through the shimmering air of Adiri. Its surface shimmered like a pearl, radiating a gentle glow that felt knowing. Megami clutched her scepter, her cat ears twitching slightly, not from fear but from sheer curiosity. Cindy, still wiping tears from her cheeks, took a step back, muttering under her breath, of course, an eyeball. Why wouldn't it be an eyeball? Persephone, thoughts, Megami whispered. I'm just a carriage. Persephone replied dryly. Don't ask me to interpret floating body parts. The eyeball blinked, slowly, deliberately, and the serene voice spoke again, resonating from within its depths. You may call me Ishara. I am one of the caretakers of Adiri, though I prefer to think of myself as an observer. An observer, Mr. Voice boomed, his tone curious but skeptical. You're just a watcher, then? Not a creator. Ishara blinked again, the light around it pulsing faintly. I observe, yes, but I also guide. Sometimes subtly, sometimes less so. The faintest hint of humor flickered in its voice. Megami tilted her head, her grip on the scepter relaxing just slightly. And what exactly are you guiding us to? Because Zippy made it sound like we're now part of this grand dream thingy. That is correct, Ishara replied calmly. You have entered the grand heavenly dream. You are now part of its infinite layers, its endless possibilities. But the light around the eyeball dimmed slightly, and its voice grew more serious. Your presence here is unusual. Unusual how? Cindy asked, her arms crossed. You are whole, Ishara said simply. Most who arrive in Adiri are fragments, seeking to mend themselves. But you have already achieved unity. This makes you unique. Megami glanced at Cindy, then at Mr. Voice and Persephone. So what does that mean for us? It means, Ishara said, that you have a choice. You may remain here, exploring the wonders of Adiri, or you may venture deeper, into the layers beyond, where the true nature of the dream unfolds. Megami's ears twitched again. Deeper? Like another realm. Precisely, Ishara replied. But be warned, the deeper you go, the more you risk unraveling the unity you have achieved. The dream is infinite, but it is also fragile. Great, Cindy muttered. More existential stakes. Exactly what I needed. Megami awoke. Holly fuzz, shouted Megami. Oh wait, I'm still here. She quickly patted her body to make sure she still felt everything, and everything still seems to be there. I just felt like I woke up suddenly, but here I still am in this grand dream. Partial awakenings are not usual here, mused Ishara, but to awake from the grand dream is to awaken to the grand dream. While I said your presence here is unified is unique, it is only unique in that you arrived this way. People come to Adiri to wake up and unified. Megami awoke. Holly balls, shouted Megami. How do you? You'll get used to it, said Ishira in a serene, aware voice. Megami patted herself down again, her cat ears twitching furiously. This is so not cute, she declared, gripping her scepter tightly. How am I supposed to stay fabulous when I keep waking up from, I don't even know what? Cindy, who had been quietly observing, rolled her eyes. Relax, Megs. You're still here. You're always still here. It's like waking up into the same room over and over. Weird? Yes. Unfixable? Probably. Not fixable. Persephone's smooth voice chimed in, her midnight blue form gliding into view. Then I suggest we learn to adapt. Personally, I don't find all this awakening terribly disorienting. But then again, I'm a carriage. You'll get used to it, Ishira repeated serenely, the eyeballs glow pulsing faintly. Adiri, and the grand dream, operate on many layers. To awaken within it is not a disruption but a progression. Each awakening brings you closer to understanding. Megami huffed, planting her hands on her hips. Closer to understanding what? All I'm understanding right now is that my fabulous dreams of perfection keep getting interrupted by. She stopped mid-sentence as the space around her shimmered, the colors of Adiri shifting in a way that felt almost intentional. A faint hum filled the air, resonating not just in her ears but in her entire being. By this, Ishira said, its voice calm but firm, this is the dream unfolding itself to you. Each awakening reveals another layer, another question, another choice. And what happens? Mr. Voice boomed, his tone tinged with skepticism. If we just don't wake up again? If we stay in one layer and don't progress? Ishira blinked slowly, its glow dimming. Then you remain, as you are. But to remain in one layer is to stagnate. The grand dream is not meant to be static. It is meant to evolve, as are you. Cindy crossed her arms, her brow furrowing. So, what happens if we go too deep? Like, layers upon layers. Do we lose ourselves? Forget who we are? That depends, Ishira replied, its voice carrying an enigmatic edge. The deeper you go, the more you encounter. Some find clarity, others find fragmentation. The question is, what do you seek? But actually, mused Ishira, I recommend you don't stay much longer. I recommend you take what you need and move on. After all, you already are whole. Too many awakenings sometimes cause issue. And without warning, the group woke up seated inside of Persephone, Cindy in the back seat, Megami in the driver's seat, Mr. Voice in the passenger seat, and Persephone in the driveway of the cottage. What the fuzz? Will something make sense? Screamed Megami. I think that was the most sensible thing that could have happened from my Destructo existential crisis spell, whispered Cindy, suddenly realizing a bit of self-awareness. Well, will you look at me? Said Mr. Voice, and suddenly everyone realized there was a dark-skinned man sitting in the passenger seat. Megami's hands tightened on the steering wheel as she gawked at the man in the passenger seat. You're a person now? When did that happen? Mr. Voice grinned, his dark eyes sparkling with mischief. Oh, I don't know, Mother. Maybe sometime between the endless awakenings, the grand dream, and Cindy's existential meltdown spell. He gestured grandly at himself. But here I am, dark, dashing, and decidedly human. Or close enough. Cindy, leaning forward from the back seat, narrowed her eyes. Wait a second. Why do you get a body? I cast the spell. Persephone did the work. And Megami, well, Megami's just fabulous, I guess. What did you do to earn this? Mr. Voice turned to face her, his grin widening. What did I do? I endured. I pondered. I boomed. And let's not forget, I was the glue holding all of you together back in that void of absurdity. Honestly, I think I deserve a little credit here. You boomed. Megami snorted, her panic giving way to a bemused smirk. Well, aren't you just the cutest little existential glue stick? See cute. Mr. Voice spluttered. Mother, I am not cute. I'm dashing. Sophisticated. Perhaps even intimidating. But cute? Never. Persephone's voice hummed through the dashboard, cutting through the banter. If I may interrupt this delightful reunion, could someone please explain why I'm parked in a driveway instead of zipping through a dreamscape? Megami blinked, suddenly remembering the scepter still clutched in her hand. It felt warm again, faintly glowing, as if it were responding to their return. Ishira said we needed to move on. Maybe this is what moving on looks like. Great, Cindy muttered, slumping back in her seat. We went through all that just to end up back here. What exactly did we accomplish? Mr. Voice leaned back, crossing his arms with a self-satisfied smile. Well, for one, I've got a body now, and I have to say, I'm quite fond of it. And for two, Megami added, holding up the glowing scepter, we've still got this. I think it's more than just a cute accessory now. Out of nowhere, a samurai sword fell like lightning into the ground directly in front of Persephone. What the fliz? All I wanted was dinner, screamed Megami, and everyone screamed in panic. Out of the hidden shadows, a ninja cloaked in a brilliant display of whites, blues, and blacks so bright. How could anyone not notice him? Izanagi, squealed Megami in glee. Well, I can't say this isn't a surprise. Izanagi stood powerfully and silent. Well, I guess we can at least have dinner now, said Megami, and she opened the door and stepped out, the others following. Izanagi, what brings you here, my dear friend? Are you here for more tea and cookies? Izanagi stood silent. Well, come now, let's go inside. I'll get those tea and cookies. You have done something, was all he said. But in they went, and Megami made tea and cookies in her plastic easy bake oven, and enjoy them they did. All the while, Izanagi remained ever silent and stoic. Megami hummed cheerfully as she set the tiny plates and cups on the table, the scent of jasmine tea and freshly baked cookies filling the room. Her cat ears twitched as she placed the cookies, perfectly golden and adorably shaped like tiny cats, on a floral patterned plate. Well, I'm glad you're here, Izanagi, she said brightly, pouring tea with a flourish. It's been far too long. You always disappear into those mysterious shadows of yours, and I never know when you'll pop back into my life. Izanagi remained silent, his posture unwavering as he sat at the table, his hands resting lightly on his knees. The samurai sword he had dropped outside now rested beside him, its blade faintly gleaming as though it held its own light. Cindy leaned forward, breaking a cookie in half and munching thoughtfully. So, Izanagi, she said between bites, you're, like, Megami's friend or something? Or are you here to deliver cryptic warnings and then vanish dramatically? Cindy, hissed Megami, horrified. That's no way to speak to a guest. Apologize at once. Cindy rolled her eyes. Fine. Sorry, Mr. Broody Mixilance. Izanagi's eyes flicked towards Cindy for the briefest moment, but he said nothing. Instead, he turned his gaze back to Megami, his expression unreadable. You have done something, he repeated, his voice calm but weighted. Megami tilted her head, puzzled. Well, yes, I've done lots of things, like making these cookies. For example, she held up a cat-shaped cookie triumphantly. Aren't they cute? That's not what I meant, Izanagi said quietly, his voice like the whisper of wind through trees. Mr. Voice leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a bemused smirk on his face. Well, he's certainly a ray of sunshine. What exactly have you done, Mother? I don't know, Megami exclaimed, her ears twitching furiously. I haven't done anything. I've been here with you lot, waking up over and... Megami froze, the teapot trembling slightly in her hands. I don't know what you're talking about. I've always tried to make things better, to make things cuter. Izanagi finally moved, reaching for a cookie with deliberate precision. He held it up, examining it as though it held the answer to some great mystery. Even the smallest actions ripple, he said, his tone measured, and sometimes, they create waves. Izanagi tossed the cat cookie in the air and, with a swoosh of his sword so quick, no one even saw him pick the thing up. The cat ears were severed, the 3 pieces were quickly in his mouth, and another cat cookie quickly disappeared into a pocket hidden in his coat. For Izanami, they are delicious. Thank you. While Megami poured some more tea and munched on her 6th cat cookie, she purred, so Izanagi, what have I done that's so terrific? Nether escaped, Izanagi said flatly. Nature destabilized. It cannot wait long. Wait. Said Cindy. That stuff? Or, lack of stuff? How did you even know what happened to us? I am fundamental. Said Izanagi. Again, flatly. Megami paused mid-purr, her 7th cookie halfway to her mouth. Nether escaped? That doesn't sound very cute at all. Her cat ears twitched nervously. Can you elaborate, Izanagi? Maybe use smaller words. Cindy leaned forward, her brows furrowed. Wait, hold up. What do you mean by nature destabilized? Is it, like, something we did? Because if it's that spell I cast, I swear I didn't mean for it to. Intention is irrelevant, Izanagi interrupted, his tone calm but unyielding. He set his teacup down with a precision that felt almost ceremonial. The nether, the absence of nature, should remain contained. It is not meant to intermingle with this realm. Your actions, however unintended, have created a fracture. A fracture. Persephone's voice hummed from the corner, her usual smoothness tinged with unease. And what happens if it's not fixed? The destabilization will grow. Izanagi replied. What is stable will decay. What is natural will distort. The balance must be restored. Megami frowned, nibbling on her cookie thoughtfully. So, how do we fix it? I mean, I'd love to help, but I don't exactly have a magic restabilize the nether button lying around. You don't, Izanagi said, a faint glint in his eyes. But you do have something else. He gestured toward Megami's scepter, which now seemed to shimmer faintly in the light. That holds the key. Megami blinked, holding the scepter up to examine it. This old thing? It's just a cute little accessory I've always had. It's plastic. It is more than it appears, Izanagi said. It is a fragment of the divine, a tool of connection. It has the power to bridge the gap. And what happens if it doesn't work? Cindy asked, her tone skeptical. Izanagi's gaze shifted toward her, piercing and unwavering. Then nature unravels. As the group settled into the cottage, the garage door remained wide open, allowing Persephone to keep an eye, or rather, a headlight, on the conversation from her spot in the driveway. Her sleek midnight blue frame gleamed faintly in the ambient light of the setting sun. Well, Persephone said smoothly, her voice projecting easily into the house. This is cozy. I suppose I'll just sit here in the driveway while you all enjoy your cookies and tea. Don't mind me. Megami waved a hand in her direction, balancing a cookie in the other. Oh, Persephone, you're practically part of the family. You're always welcome, open garage door or not. Much appreciated, Persephone replied dryly, though I'd prefer not to scrape my undercarriage on your kitchen floor. Fair point, Cindy muttered, taking another cookie. But hey, at least you're still part of the discussion. Beats being locked outside. Locked out? Me? Hardly, Persephone said with a low, rumbling chuckle. The garage door is my open invitation. I'm as involved as I need to be. Izanagi glanced briefly toward the garage, his sharp gaze flickering with something unreadable. She listens well, a good observer. See. Persephone said, her tone smug. I'm not just a carriage. I'm a masterpiece. So what is this scepter anyway? Asked Mr. Voice, sipping on a Hello Kitty teacup with his pinky up. Oh, this? I picked it up at a Comic-Con. Purred Megami. It's a Cardcaptor Sakura toy. People keep telling me I must watch it. Well, for just a toy, it seems pretty magical. Said Cindy. I've seen it glow a few times now. What? That's not normal? All my toys do that. Said Megami, puzzled. That's you. You make the toys magic. Said Izanagi. Again, flatly. We should not wait much longer. We must meet Izanami. Megami tilted her head, her cat ears twitching in confusion. I make my toys magic? Since when? I mean, they've always been fabulous, but I thought that was just because I picked the best ones. Izanagi's gaze was unwavering, his tone steady. It is not intentional. It is your essence. Your divinity leaks into the objects you cherish. This scepter, this toy, has become a conduit for something greater. Megami blinked, holding the scepter up to the light. Well, I do like it. It's cute, and sparkly, and pink. She twirled it, watching it shimmer faintly, but I had no idea it was, like, magic. Wait a second, Cindy interrupted, her brows furrowed. If Megami's toys are magic because of her, then doesn't that mean we've been walking around with a bunch of potentially dangerous magical artifacts this whole time? Dangerous, Megami gasped, clutching the scepter to her chest. They're adorable. How could something so cute be dangerous? That depends on how you use it, Izanagi said, his tone as flat as ever. But this is not the time to dwell on your nature. We must meet Izanami. Why? Persephone's voice hummed in from the driveway, smooth and measured. What does Izanami have to do with any of this? She is balance, Izanagi replied. Where there is creation, there must also be endings. The group fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them like a heavy mist. Megami's cat ears drooped slightly, and she set the scepter down on the table. Endings? She asked softly. That doesn't sound very cute. Balance is necessary, Izanagi said. The nether you unleashed has upset the natural order. Izanami will know what must be done to restore it. Mr. Voice raised an eyebrow, sipping delicately from his Hello Kitty teacup. And what if she doesn't like what we've done? What if her solution isn't exactly pleasant? She is not cruel, Izanagi said, but she is resolute. Her judgment will be final. We must go now, said Izanagi. Do you mind if I clean? Of course not. Chirped Megami cheerfully. In a flash of ninjutsu, the dishes were away and the kitchen was spotless. Wow, said Cindy in wonder and jealousy. If only I could clean up so well. Persephone. Said Izanagi. The royal midnight blue carriage's horn beeped elegantly. Yes. Let's go. Asked Izanagi. I'll drive. Said Mr. Voice, excitedly, flexing his new muscles. Oh, no you won't, honked Persephone in reply. Mr. Voice leaned back in the passenger seat, crossing his arms with a dramatic sigh. Fine, have it your way, Persephone, but for the record, I would have been a fantastic driver. You crashed into a tree the last time you tried to drive me, Persephone replied smoothly, her voice tinged with elegant exasperation. Do you think I've forgotten? That wasn't me. Protested Mr. Voice, his tone indignant. That was Cindy and her shortcut spell. Cindy rolled her eyes from the back seat. Oh, please, like you didn't tell me to try it. Megami giggled, settling into the driver's seat with her scepter resting across her lap. Let's not argue, everyone. We've got a mission. We need to find Izanami and fix whatever this whole nether thing is. Agreed, said Izanagi from his seat beside Cindy, his tone as flat as ever. Persephone, lead the way. The carriage's headlights flickered on, illuminating the driveway as the garage door closed behind them. Of course. Hold on to your scepters and swords. This is going to be a smooth ride. The group felt a subtle lurch as Persephone began to move, gliding elegantly down the forest path. The air around them seemed to shift, the trees swaying gently as though bowing in respect to the royal carriage. The Rolls-Royce glided smoothly over the jet-black pavement through the dim forest. It was dusk now. Hey, feet off the leather. Quipped Persephone. Can I at least put my head out the window? Asked Mr. Voice, moving his shiny Air Jordans from Persephone's dash and rolling down the window, putting his head out the window before waiting for a response. UHG. Roared Persephone. Hold on, said Cindy. Do you even know where we're going? There's only one road out of here, responded Persephone. Head to the Gate of Gates. Said Izanami. Do you know where that is? Never heard of it. Said Persephone. The Gate of Gates. Megami repeated, tilting her head as her cat ears twitched. That sounds very fancy and mysterious. I love it. Well, I don't love it, muttered Persephone, her tone laced with annoyance. You can't just say something dramatic like Gate of Gates and expect me to know where it is. What am I? An all-knowing GPS? You are royal, Izanagi said flatly. You will find the way. Oh, will I? Persephone quipped, her headlights flickering slightly in irritation. How about a little more guidance, Mr. Fundamental Ninja? It is not far, Izanagi replied, his tone as steady as ever. The Gate of Gates lies at the edge of this forest. It reveals itself only to those who seek it. That's still not helpful. Persephone honked, exasperated. It'll be fine. Chirped Megami, her scepter glowing faintly as she gazed out the window. Just keep driving. We'll figure it out. Right, Mr. Voice. Mr. Voice, who was thoroughly enjoying the cool breeze with his head still out the window, pulled himself back inside with a grin. Absolutely. Gates of Gates? Sounds like a perfect place for a grand entrance. Let's go. Cindy groaned, slumping in her seat. I swear, we're going to wander aimlessly into some weird eldritch nonsense and... She stopped mid-sentence as the forest around them began to change. The trees, which had been tall and familiar, grew darker and more twisted, their branches forming arches that seemed to pull the road forward. The air grew heavier, tinged with a faint, metallic taste. Megami gasped, her eyes sparkling. Oh my goodness, look. The trees are making little gates. Isn't that adorable? That's not adorable, Cindy muttered, staring nervously out the window. That's creepy. Creepy. Megami exclaimed. No, it's artistic. It's like nature is rolling out the red carpet for us. More like a black carpet, Persephone muttered. This doesn't feel right. As if in response to her words, The road ahead began to shimmer faintly, the black pavement glowing with a soft, silvery light. At the far end of the shimmering path stood a massive archway made of intertwined branches, their gnarled forms glowing with an ethereal blue light. There, Izanagi said simply, pointing toward the archway, the gate of gates. We must first pass through the no gate. Prepare, said Izanagi. Suddenly, a strong, thick wall made of metal bricks appeared out of nowhere, but Persephone smashed effortlessly through it. Hey, what was that for? I'm getting dented here, shouted Persephone. No, you aren't, said Izanagi. Next, the gate of the Watchers. Wait a second, Cindy exclaimed from the back seat, glaring at Izanagi. What's with all these gates? And what do you mean? She's not dented? I just saw her plow through that wall like a wrecking ball. I am royal, Persephone interjected smoothly, her voice dripping with dignity. I don't dent. Mr. Voice snickered, adjusting his Air Jordans as he leaned casually in his seat. Well, this is fun. What's the gate of the Watchers gonna be? A bunch of creepy eyes staring us down? Or maybe a riddle? Oh, I love riddles. As if on cue, the forest around them began to shift again. The road narrowed, the trees pressing closer together, their branches weaving into intricate patterns overhead. Tiny orbs of light floated among the trees, their glow faint but deliberate, like flickering stars. Megami clutched her scepter, her cat ears twitching nervously. Oh, sparkly, but also kinda spooky. Is it just me, or are those lights watching us? They are watching, Izanagi confirmed, his tone as flat as ever. The Watchers see everything. They judge all who pass. Judge us for what? Persephone asked, her voice tinged with annoyance. I'm flawless, thank you very much. The Watchers do not care for appearances, Izanagi said. They look deeper. The road opened into a clearing, and there it stood, the gate of the Watchers. It was an enormous stone archway, carved with intricate patterns that seemed to move and shift when you weren't looking directly at them. Floating around the gate were dozens of glowing orbs, their light pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Megami squinted, leaning forward. Wait, are those eyeballs? Are the Watchers just a bunch of floating eyeballs? Cindy groaned. Of course they are, because why wouldn't they be? As the group approached, the orbs turned toward them in unison, their glowing gazes locking onto each passenger in the carriage. The air grew heavier, and an eerie, resonant hum filled the clearing. Stay calm, Izanagi said, stepping out of Persephone with practiced ease. They will judge your intentions. If you are found worthy, they will let you pass. And if we're not worthy? Mr. Voice asked, raising an eyebrow. Then they won't, Izanagi replied simply, as though that explained everything. Megami gulped, clutching her scepter tighter. Well, I think we're pretty worthy. I mean, I'm adorable. Cindy, and Mr. Voice is, well, he's got those shoes. The Watchers didn't react to her words, their gazes unblinking. Slowly, the stone archway began to shimmer, faint traces of light outlining its edges. A deep, echoing voice emanated from the gate itself. Who seeks passage through the gate of the Watchers? I am Izanagi, announced Izanagi. We seek passage to Izanami to bring balance because the nether has escaped and nature is unstable. Said Izanagi, still flat. Now, you, said Izanagi to the others. I'm Megami. I'm cute, and beautiful. But it seems the Watchers did not approve of this answer because the eyes squinted and the spotlights turned danger red. Megami's cat ears drooped as the danger red glow intensified, the Watcher's squinting eyes narrowing further. What, she exclaimed, clutching her scepter tightly. It's true. I am cute and beautiful. How is that not a good enough answer? You are more than that, Izanagi said, his tone steady but sharp. They require the truth of your purpose. My purpose. Megami repeated, her voice rising. What does that even mean? My purpose is to make things better, to make things cuter. The Watcher's glowing eyes pulsed ominously, and the hum in the air grew louder. The scepter in Megami's hands began to shimmer faintly, as if reacting to her growing frustration. Cindy leaned forward, whispering urgently, Megami, maybe try being a little more profound? They're obviously not into the whole cute angle. But I am profound, Megami protested, her ears twitching furiously. I'm profoundly cute. Isn't that enough? Nope, Mr. Voice interjected, leaning casually in his seat. Apparently, cuteness doesn't cut it here. Try digging a little deeper, mother. Megami frowned, glancing down at her scepter. Its glow seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. a subtle reminder of the magic she carried. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. Okay, she said. My name is Megami. I create things. I make things better because I want the world to be happy. I want people to smile and feel loved. That's my purpose. The red glow around the watchers began to fade, the hum in the air softening. The eyes returned to their neutral glow, and Megami let out a relieved sigh. Phew, I guess that worked. Barely, Cindy muttered. But hey, progress.